Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Joseph Greco with the Auxilium Ignited podcast, episode number 11, with Ensign Greene of the United States Navy. Like I always do, I want to start off with a quote. The quote today is, "Greatness is a life mission." I think as we go through the interview, it'll constantly visit this quote and how Mr. Greene is the epitome of striving for greatness day after day throughout his career, throughout his life. I'm really excited to get into it. And I remember the first day when Ensign Greene introduced himself to me. It was when I was in A school back in Pensacola, and gave his intro, his bio, and even then I remember thinking that this guy was just an absolute badass. Someone I want to emulate, basically, for my career in the military. And one of the biggest things that resonates, and I'm going to revisit this in the interview, is how you showed me the ensign bar and told me that this is a goal you're working towards, and you keep it on your person every day to remind yourself of that goal and what you're working towards. And that is just, that resonates with me. Obviously, I still remember it to this day, and it's, what, six and a half years ago? So it's just a powerful thing to do that. And with this interview and questions and just talking, to this conversation, the goal, as always, is to inspire people to pursue their dreams, to be their best person, to do their best day in and day out, never give up, and to just realize that every day is a new start. So if you fail once, you fail forward, and you keep working your way up. It's never too late to start something or too late to finish something. So without further ado, I appreciate you coming on the show and agreeing to do this interview and inspire people, because I know that's going to do that. So ready to kick this off.
I really appreciate it, man. I appreciate the invite.
Absolutely. It's an honor, man. I mean, that's what this is all about, is having people who have put one foot in front of the other and just kept climbing, who are continuously climbing and inspiring other people every day. And your subordinates, you do the same thing. It's a team. You know, you make everyone feel level and that they can accomplish great things. So it's like the perfect atmosphere that I want to be present on this podcast. So the honor's mine, man.
No problem at all. Let's go and get this thing started.
Absolutely. So military now, I mean, a lot of people shy away from it out of fear, whatever the case is, maybe even a personal dislike of experience. But it goes to say that when done right, when the leaders are right, the military can really instill some great things: discipline, commitment, consistency. And your career is a perfect example of that. Now, you enlisted back in Georgia. That was in 2010, correct?
Well, it was 2009 is when I went, and then I didn't get done with the initial training. I didn't get to my first duty station until January 2010. I went to boot camp in 2009.
Yeah, that process is always a little lengthy at times.
It is.
But I know everyone's glad that you actually made that commitment. But the question that I always ask people, and a lot of people ask even me, and you hear people ask this question a lot, is what made you decide to enlist in the military, and even further, what made you enlist and choose the Navy?
So for me personally, I joined because they paid back student loans, because I was in college when I joined, and college was getting expensive. And I was like, you know what, something has to give. And I wasn't passing like every class. I wasn't a straight A student. And then I was wondering, because I'm keep racking up debt. And I'm like, let me look into this, because I was working at Walmart, and the Army recruiter kept coming in there. He kept talking to me, getting on my nerves kind of a little bit. So then I decided, you know what, let me just go see what he has to offer. Just like, a lot of recruiter stations, they had all the services in like the same little building. And long story short, I ended up talking to the Navy guy and joined for that reason. But also being an instructor, I think times have changed. Society is different. It's not what it used to be. Because when I used to teach, like even in your class, I ask students all the time, why did you join? Most of them have no idea. Right. They just say, I don't know, or I just didn't have anything to do. I don't know. So the reason people join is different than it was decades ago, when people had that the togetherness, the the family aspect to it. My granddad did this, my dad was this, so I want to be just like them. And something that still exists, but these days, a lot of people they're just looking to be a part of something, and I think that's really what it is. It's like even when we're kids, you want to be a part of something, whether it's positive or negative. You know, as a child, you're not thinking about that part. That's why you have kids joining gangs. You have kids that go to chess club or they play sports. It's because you want to be a part of something.
Exactly.
And I think nowadays people have gotten older and now they just want to be a part of something. That's what I think. But for me, I joined for the student loans, and they didn't even pay them back because my loans didn't qualify. So here I
Yeah.
am,
Yes.
11 years
I
later.
actually had the same issue with mine, and I'm trying to pursue more, and I'm having some trouble. But luckily for us, post facto, I mean, I know you went and finished up your situation, but for me, I'm having to wait until the tour is over before I can actually finish the stipend they allow. So
Yeah, I ended up graduating last year, so I did finish my degree. So that's the positive thing that came out of that.
no, it's huge, and I think going on what you said too, it's also, I remember listening to a lot of coaches and people talking about, the people you hang around matter a lot. And I think that, like you said, people joining gangs are making their own decisions because everyone has that human instinct to belong. But I think that's where influence, positive influences come in hand. It's not only, who you hang around and who you're influenced by. I think it's also, what people are listening to and looking at, because I think the ears, the eyes are really doorways into the mind. And if we're letting in negativity or these bad influences, these stagnant influences, I think it's really going to keep us from, moving forward and keep people from pursuing their true destiny, their goals, whatever there is. So I think that happens a lot. And one of the things in the military, I know, I joined for a similar reason, to travel and for school and benefits and whatnot. But I think it teaches you to kind of compartmentalize different things, and to have that, although it's, a pain in the ass sometimes, but the influences for the most part are positive, and you have that camaraderie, and it's not like you're doing too bad of things, because you know that there's consequences. And I think having that backboard of consequence and that honor of, you're put on a pedestal, kind of like you have to live up to this title of a person in the military, So I think that gives a lot of people direction, and on top of that, it can also offer a lot of wind behind the sails, like in your situation, for sure.
It does, and it gives you some responsibility as well.
Absolutely.
And because a lot of people they do ask the question like, why you join the military and stuff? Because now people look at it somewhat like a negative light for whatever reason, for politics or whatever.
Right.
And then people get those conversations, but there's not many places where an 18-year-old can go and you can learn how to manage or how to be a leader and how to even follow that you can. And I ask people all the time, where can you send an 18, 19-year-old where they're going to be in charge of 10 or 15 people and responsible for something to get done? And there's not many places where 18, 19-year-old can go where they have that responsibility. And you can learn that early on. Even if you get out of the military, you're going to carry that experience on with you. And you can take that corporate America, you can take it anywhere, because you have the experience of I've been in charge and I know what responsibility is and I know what accountability is. And I think that's one of the main reasons, man. That's something that people get out of it. Whether you, like I said, whether you stay in or not, you're going to learn how to be accountable and hold other people accountable. And I don't think any other 18, 19-year-olds can get that anywhere else other than the military. And I always tell people all the time, like, it's a good thing. I would do it. You don't have to retire, but I would do 4 years just to get that experience. Because that's just not going to make you a better person.
I absolutely agree with that 100%. And, you've been a mentor of mine since, that first day, and you still are. And, I feel like another mentor of mine told me, outside of the military, actually, that when things are going bad, even different duty stations, different leaders I've had that I considered not the best, or situations, it's really, you always have a choice how to react to your circumstances and to look at it in a positive perspective. And like you said, you can always build and learn things, accountability, responsibility, every duty, every situation you're in the military and in life in general. But in our situation, what we're talking about now, I think that and I've learned that you take from shit situations, you take the good and or even the bad, and you turn it and you learn something from it and you grow. So then when you, like you said, if you get out or you retire, whatever the case is, move forward in your career and life, you're not building a house on sand. You're taking your experiences and you're solidifying it and making it positive and really building a positive foundation. And then when it comes time to that next big thing, like in your situation, I met you when you were E6, then you had the anchors in your pocket as well, and you were E7, and then you just LDO program. Now you're an officer. So it's taking every echelon, per se, and level you're in, and whether it's inside or outside the military, and making the best of it and building up, not out. Because I think if you look at people that complain about situations, we all complain, you're really building out or building down when you're doing that. You're internally and externally. You're not building up at all. So I think it's a powerful way to kind of give people that vision. It teaches you that the next rank is up. You know, you're always trying to move forward, whether it's getting out, whatever your case is, there's always a next step, which is a good lesson. But a lot of people don't learn, especially in America. You know, they remain stagnant in where they are. They don't pursue their dreams. They get miserable, whatever the case is. So I definitely think it's a great thing. And going back to how you kept your anchors and the butter bar in your pocket. So tell me about like how this served as fuel that kept your engine going, and what can you say with why you did this and how you came to start that?
So in the military, you know, sometimes we do things and we're trying to figure out why are we doing this. Sometimes what you do, sometimes it doesn't make sense to you. But you know, someone above you who has more knowledge than you about the situation made that decision. So it made sense to somebody. But today it just doesn't make sense to you. And then sometimes you sit there and you're wondering, like, why am I here? Why am I doing this? This makes no sense. And like you said, you have to look at the positive in the situation. You have to know that this isn't the end of the game. There's always a next step. And you got to look and figure out, okay, I know that I'm not going to do this forever, but what's my next step? So what I did was I would do this in my house. Like I put up right before my front door, I would put little notes, remind me of how to think, you know, just little words of encouragement. I'll put them on my bathroom mirror. I even had a notepad, a waterproof notepad I'd have in my shower, and I would have little motivational things in there. So when I get ready to go to work, I'm filling my mind up with these positive thoughts and these positive things. So when I go out and I go to work, I know why I'm there. You know, you have to remind yourself. And I tell all my mentees, what I would do, I'd give them a 3-ring binder, and then I would make them a cover sheet. And the cover sheet would have all the qualifications that they need to get. So when you look at this binder, you know what's next. You're looking at it. You're being reminded of it every day. Because what happens is when you don't write things down, you tend to forget them. Because even myself, I find myself going to work like 2 or 3 weeks, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, you know, I really haven't done anything other than just, you know, the day in stuff. I haven't done anything to better myself. Like it's been 3 weeks. Then I said, you know, let me start writing this stuff down. Because you'll find yourself, you'll get into that groove of going to work, going home, going to work, going home. Well, if you put this list of things that you're trying to do, whether it's military or not, it could be college, it could be for something to start your own business, whatever you want to do, you write these things down, and throughout your day, you're reminded. Like, you know what, I have some downtime. Like, oh, snap, I haven't done this yet. And you remind yourself to keep going. So when I put the insignia in my pockets, there'll be times where I'm sitting at work and I'm like, why am I doing this? Or why am I here at 5 o'clock knowing I should be at home? But guess what? I got this insignia right here in my pocket, and I'm like, okay, there's a reason why I didn't quit today. There's a reason why I stayed late when I wasn't made to do this, but I know I have something to do. And I'll keep that always close by in my pocket. So sometimes I have to look at them like, okay, this is why I'm still at work. This is why I didn't choose to go home and I stayed back on my own to get this done. So that's something I did. I always try to remind myself of why I'm doing something, or put something where I can see it. I see people all the time. They ask me these questions like, How you so focused? How you do this? I just remind myself. Like print out your quals that you can't even get to yet. Print the stuff out that you got to get in 6 months. You know, make a collage of something, make a checklist and put it by your computer monitor. So that way you can always see it, especially when you're at work. So that way you can always see it, and you know when you have 5 minutes, you sitting there doing nothing, or you run out of work for the day. Oh, I got a whole checklist of stuff I gotta get done within the next year or two, and then you can do that. It could be, I want to take college classes. Well, you know what? I got 30 minutes free today. Let me go look at the colleges I want to go to. Let me put my applications in. Let me do this. You know, and so you have to remind yourself. It's even like you're sitting in a meeting or you're talking to somebody. How many times has someone told you something important and you forgot it because you didn't write it down? It's because you talked to them in the Walmart parking lot, and by the time you got home, you can't remember the phone number or the
Way too
person's
much.
name or the day or the date for whatever the thing was, because you didn't write it down. You didn't save the phone number in your phone. It's something like that. So you have to remind yourself. And that's why I was doing it. Remind myself, why am I waking up and going to work today? That's mostly what I was doing.
That's powerful. And I actually, you'd be proud to know, I actually, the one thing I still keep in my ankle pocket is a little notebook. I take notes, and every day I do have a goal list, career-wise, and obviously personal life and different things I'm doing. So I definitely, what you put out to us mentees definitely sticks. And I had, when I was doing the warfare devices and all that, and qualifications, I had little notes and reminders in the pocket. So every time I took my ID, I took the pin out, and I would remind myself what I'm working towards. And I actually did really well on that because, like you said, you see that it creates and bellows the flames of that fire, that goal you're working towards. And I think it comes down to even a simple analogy that it reminds me of is, you know, you look at Thomas the Train. It's such a rudimentary story, but I think when Thomas the Train says, you know, I think I can, I think I can, I think people don't realize this part. I think that it's not just his motivation and his, you know, persistence to move forward and his confidence in himself. I think it's because he had track in front of him the entire time. He knew where he was going, and there was track already laid out. So I think I kind of think I can is a lot easier to do when you have the track already in front of you. It's not like you're building the track or you don't know where to go, or it's in like 5 different directions. You know, you have the direction where you're going, you laid it down, and you're on the tracks moving towards it. So I think, like you said, you have that in your face. It kind of works in that fashion where it's a lot easier for you to move with momentum towards what you're working towards when you can see it and it's concrete. That's
Yeah, and
powerful.
and I'm glad you brought that up. So that never clicked on in my head either. Now I have to start using that. So I appreciate it.
It's pretty good, right?
It's exactly what you said. You have the track is there. You just have to move forward. And especially in the military, the track is there. They tell you exactly what you have to do. They tell you when you have to be there, what do you have to have on. And then if you just ask somebody, hey, what does it take to be this? They'll tell you.
Yep.
To become an officer, they tell you what we're looking for. To become a chief petty officer, they come out with a document every year that comes out and says, these are the things that we're looking at. So they tell you, it's so easy. All you have to do is just go do it. Like even once you become an officer, they have, they tell you, there's a document that comes, the best qualified people will have this list of stuff. They literally tell you what to go do. But people, for some reason, people don't do them, or they just, I don't know, maybe they don't care enough. But they tell you every step of the way, and that's all I did. Because when I put my officer application in, I print out the criteria. They said we want the people who get selected. You're going to have this list of stuff. I print out that list, and I just start checking it off. Like, okay, I have that. I have this. I have these 3 things. I don't have those. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, well, I didn't have the opportunity to get some of these. So I know that's not going to be a mark against me. So I'm like, you know what? I actually have a good chance here. Looking at, you know, straight numbers just off this Word document, not to mention my documented performance. That was what I have on this checklist. I have a good chance. They tell you everything. And all you have to do is sit there and just think I can and then move forward.
It's going to move forward. I agree. And that's,
But the problem is we get so caught up in people's personalities. And I get it. You work for somebody and they're not the best person in the world. They're not approachable. But the problem is people are using this kind of stuff for an excuse of why I don't have something. I cannot do that.
Mm.
Another person, I cannot let another person be the reason why I don't have something, unless there's some unless there's some special circumstances there. But for the most part, I'm not gonna say, oh, I didn't get selected my first time because this one person over here didn't like me. No, I can't do that. And I think, and I see people do that. People, they try to figure out why they don't have something, and it's never them. It's never them. It's not the individual. It's always somebody else of why someone doesn't have something.
No,
And
I
most of
agree.
the time, it's because you're not moving forward on that train track. You never said, I think I can. You just said, I don't know. It's not, I don't think I can. It's because somebody else did something. That's why I can't do it. Like, no, that's not it. That's not always the answer. Sometimes, got it, but you can't base your career, your life on somebody else, because that's just not going to work for me.
There's a reason why we have the expression "easy day," because it comes down to it. It's really that easy. And for me, even before I joined, I had big successes, and then I had some big failures. And for the longest time, I think it was about 2 years, I was really depressed. I was eating nachos, drinking Corona beer every day, like just real depressed. Still working out, of course, but really down and beating myself up, but blaming other people about my situation and having a pity party. And like you said, you can't blame someone else for your stagnancy. And for the longest time, I did a crappy job. I was not moving forward. I wasn't providing what I wanted to provide for my son. I wasn't providing for myself. Not being the best influence I could be. And then, I read a book by, John Maxwell, and it said about failing. It was fail forward. And I kept reading more. And then eventually I was reading I think I read 100 books within that period. And they were all, not like self-help, like cheesy self-help books. They're like real deep self-help books and like books on many different things about positivity. And I started hanging around with positive people. And eventually I got to the point where I got to stop blaming this other person or these other people or the cards that life dealt me. And something that a quote that I came up with along the way, and I did put this on the mirror at one point. And I told myself that I can't complain about the cards that life dealt me. I have to look at these cards and play them as if they were the cards that I always wanted. Because there's a moment where you have to put your hand on your chest, feel your heart, and this guy named Shetty, who's an author, I'm trying to think of his first name. But anyway, he says that you put your hand on your heart, you feel your heart beating, and you just tell yourself, I am where I'm meant to be. And that reminder is that you're in control of that moment. What's in the past is a blur. What's in the future is a fog. Breathe, rethink everything, move forward, and fail forward. The book by John Maxwell is Fail Forward, and it's all about big failures lead to big success. And no one that's hugely successful has not tasted failure and moved forward from it. I think the bigger the storm, the clearer the area is after. So that has eventually became my mentality. I stopped blaming other people. But I think it's a huge, speaking of pandemics, it's a huge pandemic in our society in this generation is to blame other people, to have a pity party, and to not fix things. If something doesn't work, we're on to the next thing. Whether it's in relationships, people do, there's so much infidelity, there's so much promiscuity, which, and I'm not judging people, but with careers, with relationships, all over the place, because people are not being committed to themselves, they're not being committed to the goals, and they're on the next thing, or they're just blaming something or someone instead of taking it by the balls or the horns, whatever you will, and just doing it, fixing it, dealing with it, growing from it. So it's powerful, man. And speaking of the military, you're talking about that and focusing on that. I know you also like to travel. You just came from Japan. I know you were in New Zealand. You travel a lot as well, and I have a huge passion for it. Most of my Instagram is travel and tips and motivation to go with it. What is your favorite part about the military? I know you originally joined to help with tuition, and then I know you love to travel, but what is the one thing that you love the most?
It's the diversity, man. It's the craziest thing. Certain types of people I've never met just because I'm from Georgia and I'm from the country. I've never met like a Filipino person. I've never met one until I joined the Navy. And
It's
I've
a
met
lot.
people in the Navy. I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
And and I met people in the Navy who said, you know what? you're like the first Black person that I've had a conversation with, and they're from the United States. So it's like you feel like this is crazy, but that's the one. But in the military, it's like most times we don't even care about that kind of stuff. It's just we're all here together. It's like I saw a meme the other day on Facebook, and it was say like only in the military will you have a guy from Montana hanging out with a guy from Vietnam who's playing with their Chinese friend, is making some kind of dish, and they're trying to play some game that someone grew up in Vietnam playing or something like that. And I was like, you know what, that's really true, because the diversity in the military is just amazing, man. You have so many different people, so many different types of cultures and backgrounds, and everybody's there working together, and you just learn so much just about the world, just from your people. That's even not even traveling yet. That's just the people that you work with. So that's the one thing I really like about the military is the diversity, man. You have people from so many backgrounds, and everybody's here working together, working on the same thing, and you get so many different opinions, and you learn stuff. Like, I'm pretty sure everybody in the military at some point has learned something offensive that they didn't know was offensive until they joined the military. And then you talk to somebody who's like, you know, that's very offensive. You shouldn't say that. And you're like, dang, I've been saying that for the last 20 years. Well, I haven't met you before. And then you're like, oh, dang. And then you explain it. You're like, oh, I'm like, dang, I can see why that's offensive. Let me not say that ever again. But it's like, I would have never known that, right? I could be 40 years old still saying it and not know them because I didn't meet anybody from that background before.
No, absolutely.
Another thing, people transfer. So, you know, everybody, like sometimes every leader's not the best, right? Everybody has different personalities. And whether they mesh with you or not, that's different. My opinion is they're not great, but someone else might say they're awesome. So people transfer. So you come in a couple years and then you go to another duty station. So if you're working somewhere and this one person is just riding you, or they're preventing you from doing something, or they're just making you uncomfortable, at some point they're going to leave or you're going to leave, and then things will get better. That's one thing is, yeah, when you're in a bad situation, someone's going to leave. Eventually you're going to leave, or that other person or group of people, eventually they're going to leave as well. So you always get new faces. You always get more diversity, right? You keep moving, you keep changing duty station, you meet new people, and you make lifelong friends from people from all over the world. It's just amazing. And then when you go travel, you're like, oh, I'm going here. Like, oh, you know what? I met a couple people from that country. Mm-hmm. Let me call them and ask them, what should I do when I get there? It's just amazing.
No, it is. And you realize, being overseas, it teaches you, it debunks, per se, a lot of the, cultural perceptions in the United States we have of other countries. You're really like, wow, like I've heard this from like vernacular in my town or whatever. And then, like you said, you go there and you actually experience the people, the other cultures, and you're like, wow, this is nothing like what my little community told me it was like. But most of the people that told you all this and talked about it, they were never even there in their whole entire life. Then now you're looking at me like, why the hell are you telling me about Italy if you've never even been there once in your life? Like, shut up. I live there now, and it's not like that at all.
It's always the people who've never been anywhere who always have an opinion. Like,
it's like I heard something like someone recently posted something, and it was great. It was basically like if someone ever puts you down for pursuing your goals or talk shit about you, it's not because they're better than you or they think they're better than you. It's because they feel very small, they think they're small, and they're not where they want to be, where they never experienced, never been in a position where you are, where you're positive, you're moving forward. And I thought that was great, because a lot of the times people get discouraged when other people put them down, like, oh, you're in the Navy trying to excel, or you're doing your podcast or something stupid like that. And it's because really they're sitting there in their house and they don't have shit going for them. They're usually the ones that make the most noise. It's not the people that are successful, because people that are successful are too busy doing what they need to do, what they know they need to do to be successful, to focus on your shit. And so it's funny because I used to take that seriously. Especially social media is the worst about it. You're like, people are like, oh my God, I wish my life was like this person. And I wish I had this amount of money. And I like laugh, and I'm like, well, first of all, I travel more than most millionaires or billionaires, not because they can't, just because they have no time for you, or they don't even have the right minds or the desire sometimes. So You don't need all the money in the world necessarily. You don't need to be rich to accomplish your dreams. Your success is not. That's what society, like I said something else in another interview, you can't measure success with society's ruler. Success is really a
It's
personal.
defined by you.
It's defined by you. It's very personal. You can't say a zebra and a lion is a perfect example. They're completely different measures of success. The zebra's ultimate success is to outrun and survive the lion. The lion's ultimate success is to outrun and catch the zebra. They're completely opposite, measures of success. So you can't really say, oh, this one's more successful than that one. Comparing our success to other people's is almost as stupid as comparing that.
And you have a friend back home, and he's a factory worker or whatever, but he's happy, right? He's not like he's struggling. He's not upset. I remember he told me, he's like, you know what? He said, I just want a house and a charger. And guess what? He got his house and he got his charger. And to most people, that just sounds, like you're supposed to have a house, you're supposed to have a car. His version was, that's what I want. I mean, can you say you can't say it's stupid, that's what that person wants. Everybody doesn't want a mansion and 10 bedrooms and fountains in the garage. Nobody cares. Not everybody cares about that kind of stuff. So just like you said, success, man, it's defined by you. It's whatever you want it to be. Like for me, I just want happiness. And whatever brings me happiness, that's what I want. Do I want a Ferrari or something? Not really. I'll rent them. I don't want to own one. I just want the liabilities and things cost too much. I don't want to own one. I'll drive them. And, I don't want no super big house, none of that stuff. I just want to be happy. That's it. Whatever brings me happiness, that's what I go for. And if it doesn't bring me happiness, regardless of what it is, I try to stay away from it, or I try to minimize its influence that it has on me, whether that's people or jobs or experiences. If it doesn't make me happy, I gotta go the other way. Because I see so many people, man, who social media, right, who always complaining. They always have something negative saying. They're always complaining about people, my family this, my spouse that, my boyfriend this. But it's like, okay, you've been complaining about this for about 6 months. It becomes your fault at that point. Absolutely. Now I get it. Some of these decisions are very hard to make. But at some point, you're allowing it to happen. You're allowing this to happen. And you and it's not making you happy. You have to change that. Otherwise, it's just, you can't complain because you're letting it happen. No,
it's key. And it's like, I look at it, life, everyone knows, especially, in certain circumstances, you've done green side. And by green side, I mean, you're put into a hostile environment where you might potentially fight. And, so going away from that for a second, life is almost like the flame in a candle. A simple breeze can put it out. You never know when your life's going to be up. So like you said, happiness, or measuring your success in small goals, and not comparing yourself and tiring yourself to comparing yourself to other people, trying to meet their measures of success. You're going to exhaust yourself and live one hell of an unhappy life when it could end in a moment. In just one breeze, it could be over. It's so fragile, and it's such a wasted time not to focus on you inwardly first. It's not selfish, it's sustainment. And, about the diversity thing, I think that, that's an old saying, that's what makes the ocean so successful. I mean, it's got so much diversity, and, it's been around since the beginning of time. So diversity is extremely strong and vital to growing yourself as a person and growing your mind. It's just fertile. It's just a fertile thing to have in your life.
Yeah, man. And I try to get people to worry about your happiness, man. That's just the first thing, because like you said, you could be gone in an instant. And then if something happened to you, you're just laying there. Are you going to have to rethink every decision you made? Like, you know what? I didn't do this. I wish I would have done that. And for me, the most part, I try to prevent that conversation with myself. When going throughout my days, I'm like, okay, what do I really want to do? And I try my best to do that. I do my best to say, you know what? I don't want to have to regret this one day and have to have this conversation with myself when I'm about to pass away or something. So I just do what makes me happy, man. That's the number one thing that I try to do. That and just live, because you never know. You never know.
Preach, brother.
That
Preach. And
win is gonna
that's
come one
key.
day.
Exactly. And that's part of this, what I started this for, is I noticed so much negativity on social media. And even it was after I posted something really negative and someone commented, like, because they know my person, they know I'm a very positive person. So they're like, why are you posting this? I was like, I had a bad week. This is bothering me. They're like, social media is not a place for that. And then they talked to me, and then I was like, wait a second, you're right. And then I looked back to past posts, other years when things were going better. And, I've always had those motivational posts I always put out there. And, I'm a writer, just published my book. And this year, and it's full of positivity and optimism. And that's what this podcast is about. If you look at my Instagram, my posts, Facebook, it's all like positivity, encouragement, and it's light. And I think that's the kind of environment, that's what I want to show people when they knock and they answer the door on my social media and see my pages and my platform. They're just splashed with a bunch of positivity and encouragement. I hope that even one person is inspired from this and seeing that, and receiving messages from people saying that they got inspired or they worked out today, and whatever the case is, it's amazing, because there's too much negativity, there's too much egoism that's flooded on there, that it's become this demon in society, really. Not being religious, but just in the sense where it's brought so much negativity and just self-destruction in our society, because people are just going further and further away from self, love, happiness, and contentment. It's miserable, man. And speaking of positive influences and that kind of atmosphere, you're a mentor to so many people, but who is your greatest mentor, and how has that person helped shape your success, and how are they really the sunshine that makes you bloom into the man you are today and then to where you are in your career?
Well, I don't really have a specific person per se. I have a collection of people, because
Okay.
everybody's provided something different. I haven't had. I know some people have that one person. I don't have just one individual. I have person A who showed me how to do this one thing. Person B showed me how to do something completely different. And what I ended up doing was I was taking all these tools from different people's toolboxes, and I started creating my own toolbox. And I was like, I'm gonna take that from you. I'm gonna take this from this person. I'm gonna use that. And what I did was I molded myself based off of different experiences from different people.
Hmm.
Now, as far as I do a lot of reading, so one of my favorite books is by Robert Greene. It's called Mastery. And in
Don't lie,
that
you
book,
read that book because his last name.
yeah, but in that book, it's about being a master at like a craft or a
Hmm.
trade or something. And in the book, it was to me, it was like one of the perfect written books, because it would give you the concept, but it would also give you a real life story that reinforced the concept that he was explaining. Because, a lot of times you read something and it sounds good just because someone wordsmithed it up and they made up something. But this one, it was a real story about real people and what they went through and how it tied into becoming a master at something.
Hmm.
And I thought that book was just well written. And that's one of my favorite ones.
I'm gonna check that
If
out.
you
It
have a
sounds
chance,
it
I
sounds
would
right up
check
my
that
alley.
one. It's called Mastery. It's like a black and gold cover.
Okay, yeah, I'm definitely
Then
gonna read that.
and then one individual that everybody knows, Floyd Mayweather, happens to be another one. Not because of the flashy stuff that he does, not all because of all the money. It's because his work ethic is beyond anything that I have seen in recent history. Like,
Hmm.
I've watched so many documentaries, so many interviews, and like he doesn't even put himself on a schedule. A lot of people, they go in 5 o'clock this, 6 o'clock that, 9 o'clock take a nap, 10 o'clock that. Floyd Mayweather doesn't do any of that. He just does stuff. He just he just works out when you wake up. You might go eat breakfast, or you might sit on the couch, and then he'll just go run 5 miles. Then he'll go to the gym, and then he go to the gym 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. He just does stuff, and
Hmm.
it's just his work ethic, man. Is that he doesn't stop. Like, he knows what he wants to do, and he just works at it. He just goes, and you can watch his people interviews about him, like the boxers that's faced him. And they're like, man, the guy, they say he's like a machine. Like say he doesn't even get tired. I remember I can't remember who it was. They went so detailed that like, when you clench, he was like, he could hear the way that he would breathe to like bring himself together. He said he would change his breathing because, he could hear, because his head was next to his ear.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and the guy is just amazing. He's just an amazing athlete. I mean, what he does in personal life, that's whatever he does. But the athlete, oh man, it's just, his work ethic is just on a whole nother level. And I think about that all the time. I even posted a video of him talking about it. And it's just motivational just to see that how he works and how he just keeps going and going. And then he sticks to it. And then he becomes like one of the best. Like there's even a jump rope video he was doing, because I just started getting into jump rope. They say it's one of the best cardios.
Oh, it's amazing.
That's unrelated to the, to the podcast. I just have to find that on my own.
No, that was fitness is, fitness of the mind and body is what this brand's all about. Auxilium's about, working the reps mentally and physically. So, I mean, I know obviously you do both of those. And that's what we're getting into now, the mental. And now I'm glad you mentioned the physical aspect. So it's definitely in line.
Yeah. And then, so he had a video. He was just doing these crazy jump rope tricks and all kinds of stuff. Like, I want to be like this guy, man. But his work ethic, man, it's on a whole nother level. It's insane.
It reminds me, I watched recently something similar. Muhammad Ali, he had a documentary that came out, and I watched it. And it was equally powerful. And I remember the best part was when I don't know if you've seen it, when he's in his house. He wanted a farmhouse, and he wanted to step away. And that's when he got into the spiritual side of his life, really deep into that. But, it was, aside from what people would perceive as the cockiness, the arrogance, I don't really think I would call it that, but some people may. It was his utter sureness of his success. He's like, I am the best. I will be the best. It was not, oh, maybe, I don't know. There was no, there was no moment of pause or uncertainty in his mind. Him becoming the best, him winning the matches, becoming better, was a certain inevitability. And I think that kind of goes along with Mayweather, where they both just did what was necessary to become better. It wasn't a question of, well, let me just follow this cookie cutter plan and pay this money to follow this program, or blah, yada, yada, all the bullshit that's out there now. It was just getting down and doing it. There's nothing that will outdo hard work. And a plant's going to grow when you give it sunlight, water, and fertile ground, some dirt.
And you have to believe in yourself. And like all the great, like Muhammad Ali and Floyd Mayweather, it's funny you say that, because they both said, I'm the best.
Exactly.
They both said that.
And they both been the best, though.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. So like even when I was an instructor, I used to tell people all the time, I'm the world's greatest IT. There's no way for me to measure that. You can't measure that. There's too many things about being an IT. But you know what? I said it all the time. And you know what my students would say? I'm the world's best IT. They started to believe it. And I would just tell people, and even now, people still say that. Like I remember after I got commissioned, someone said, so are you like the greatest officer now or what? I'm like, I was like, okay, you remember I used to say that. And that was years ago, and people still remember it. So that's one thing that I do. You have control over other people's opinion about you. You have some control in there. So what I do is I just tell people what I want them to think about me. That's what I do. I tell people, like I say, I'm the world's greatest IT. I just tell them all the time. But I believe that myself. So the performance comes out. Just how you said, it was inevitable for them to become the best because they said they was. And so for me, I would tell people that, and then my performance will come out as well. And then it just reinforces everything that you said. Now, people say Muhammad Ali, greatest fighter of all time. Well, he kind of lost some fights. So what's the angle there? You see what I'm saying? He lost. He didn't go undefeated. So someone beat him. But Muhammad Ali said what? I'm the best of all time. So what are people going to believe? They're going to believe what he said. Right? I mean, you can make that argument all day long. But the point is, he said something, his performance reinforced it, and people believe it. So you have to tell people sometimes what you want them to think about you. And that's what I do. That's what I do sometimes.
That's powerful, man. That's the wind that makes the tree move right there. I mean, that's key. And I think that I need to have that reverberate in my own mind and echo, because a lot of times I even need to remind myself of the control that we have over our own environment. It's not really we just need to take the reins of our environment and not stop playing victim to it. It's really a powerful thing. And I know that everyone goes through struggles, but it's finding what you need to find to overcome it. And speaking of which, with COVID and different things, people outside the military, we're lucky and fortunate to have the job security we do. But a lot of people are struggling financially. And I know this is also something that you've shared and, expressed a talent with, is handling your financial, building a financial house for your future. And even now. And I recently read a book called The Latte Effect. It's a really good book. And it's basically about compound interest and investing and creating money for your future and not now, like not overspending with credit, the big problem we have in our society. So this is something that you tell your team, and you explain to me that, you told the people that you work for, anyone that ask you about it, that you had a stimulus check and you told them that you doubled it.
Oh yeah,
and a lot
that
of people
was
are
in
going
there.
out there.
Yeah, that was so that was back when I was on the ship and we was underway, and they had we was doing talent nights and things like that. And I just wrote, it was like a poem slash spoken word thing that I was gonna do at the talent night. Cause I was like, you know what, the younger people, they like raps, they like rhymes, they like music. I'm like, I could just stand up here and tell them something. But 18, 19-year-olds, you can talk to them all day, but it doesn't really mean much. So I was like, you know what? Let me put some rhythm to it. Let me put some rhymes to it, and then it'll bring them in closer. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna use this, but now I'm gonna just start telling you the stuff that people probably tell you every day, but you don't. But you tune it out just because it's an adult telling you to do something, so you automatically just want to do the opposite. So that's why I wrote that in there. It was like a spoken word thing. So, I said that because I wanted them to think about, okay, you got the $1,200, but a lot of people are just gonna go spend it, which is, I guess that was the purpose of it. But that was $1,200 that you wasn't supposed to have. So use that money and try to make more of it. And that's what I was getting at. Because every time you make, you advance, you go to another pay grade, that pay increase is money you didn't have before. And you survived just fine without it. So now that you got promoted, take that extra money, the promotion money, and just put it to the side or put it in your brokerage account or do something, because you survived without it. So don't go start spending the bigger check just because you got it. So if you think about it, like a second class, if you made first and you made chief and you got picked up on officer, you lived perfectly fine as a second class. Now all that extra money, you just put that to the side.
Yep.
And that's what I try to tell some people to do that. And as far as investments, I just recently got into trading options, doing different option strategies. I have a penny stock strategy that I work on, and velocity banking is probably the biggest thing that I wish the world knew about, but it's because it doesn't make the bank money. So obviously it's not advertised, but velocity banking, it's not like there's no tricks, there's no accounts, there's nothing to it. It's just how you manage the money that you already have. So long story short, since we got the name out there, people can do their own research. But long story short, with velocity banking, you use your line of credit and you essentially turn that into like your checking account. So you would use your credit card or your line of credit for all your daily purchases, your McDonald's, your gas, whatever. And then when you get your direct deposit from work, you make that the payment to your credit card. Now, as long as you are not overspending, you're going to have money left over in there, correct? So what you do is you give yourself a cash advance from your credit card, and then you would use that advance to pay down the principal on some debt that you have. Now, if you don't have any debt, then, this is pretty much irrelevant. So if you had like $15,000 worth of debt, you would give yourself a cash advance, pay down the principal, and then you use your your direct deposits, and you start paying down that 5,000. Now, depending on how much money you make, obviously you can do a lot more, or you might have to do a lot less. You know, so, and you just keep doing that, and you knock that debt down so fast. But like I said, if you look this up, it'll make more sense other than just hearing about it right here. But when I researched and I looked at it, I'm like, you know what, this makes a lot of sense. So I started doing that, and I started paying things off at a light speed rate. Like I've had student loans forever, and I'm like, I'm almost at the end of them, and I've only been doing this for like a couple of months. And I'm like, dang, why doesn't people know about this? Like, this is actually is very beneficial. It's just a money managing technique. It's not, like I said, it's not like you have to open up a bank account. You don't have to go get a credit card. You don't have to talk to anybody. It's really how you manage your money, your cash flow that you already have. So if you haven't heard of it, I would look into it. And I mean, it's awesome. I mean, it gets things going quick, other than just making, you know, the minimum payments. And you can even look up calculators. Like there's you can look up velocity banking calculators, and it will tell you how much faster would you pay off like your house, like a $200,000 mortgage. It'll tell you how much faster you would pay that off just utilizing this technique. And it's mind blowing what you can actually do. It's crazy.
I'm gonna look into that for sure.
It's just a technique. It's not like there's nothing funny business about it. It's just how you manage the money you already have.
No, I'm definitely gonna look up the videos, and if you know, like you said, I obviously take your word, so I'm gonna actually do that, because that's exactly what, you know, is necessary to accelerate things, like you said, with debt, but just in general, it kind of builds your credit up too. It sounds like, so that's definitely good.
It will. But like I said, you know, everybody do their own research. You know, I'm not advocating for anything or trying people to do anything, but that's just a concept that I think people should know about. And what I like to do is just make information available.
Right.
You know, that's all I want. I want information to be available. I mean, you do it or you don't. You know, it's personal choice, but the information needs to be available. And that's why I like to bring things up.
No, I appreciate it, and I know everyone that looks it up is going to appreciate it, because I asked you the question because I know that you've been successful with it. You know, I take it as silver apples on a golden platter. And I remember one of the things you told me that you told your guys is that you literally just told them how to buy back the block. You know, Gucci and Rick Ross said buy back the block, and you gave them, like you said, you gave them the knowledge. It's up to them to actually go out there and investigate it and try it. And there's literally, like you said, it's your own money. There's literally you're not risking anything. So just study it and know what you're doing before you aim and shoot. But yeah, I mean, I appreciate you sharing that, and it's important. I mean, and you got to where you are in your career in 8 years, which is, people that are not in the military, that's extremely impressive. You know, back in the day, it took people, what do you think? The average was like 12, 15 years sometimes?
Yeah, it was around 12 years to make chief. Yes,
a lot more.
I mean, actually, the average is still close around 12 years across the board.
Yeah, it just says a lot. That's what I'm saying. It says a lot about you. You have not only your financial house is built, on rock and stone, it's solidified, but how fast you accelerated in your naval career, your military career, your life career, your knowledge bank is extremely impressive. And I think that it goes to show, and the reason why I'm asking these questions and gleaning from you and why you're on this podcast is I think that you judge a tree by its fruit. You can't just judge a person by other people's gossip or anything. You judge someone by their life, what they're producing, and who they're producing. Leaders produce leaders if they're good leaders.
Right.
And you look at the trail behind you, man, and it shows good fruit. And that's why I wanted to get you on here, so you can share that, and that people can take the knowledge. They're going to do what they want to do with it. You can't force the horse to drink, but it's provided. And that's what this is all about, whatever the keys is. I wanted to get a different perspective. We're military, but this is all stuff that's helpful in or out of uniform. Anyone can be taking this and learning from it. Taking some good stuff away. And you're obviously extremely positive. You read, you work out, you're doing the mental reps, doing the physical reps. But obviously everyone has struggle. So when the ship's sinking, we all fight, keep the ship alive. But, a lot of people with COVID, all this negative stuff going around, they're jumping ship, they're deciding to just give up. And let it go. They're losing their job. Really, truly difficult situations are going on. What can you tell someone who may find themselves in a overwhelming situation, feeling kind of discouraged now? What would you recommend, or what kind of encouragement or advice would you give those kind of people who don't really have the camaraderie we have, or the platform?
We talking about just people just in general across the board, or we talking about military wise, or we just talking about people?
This question is just people.
Just people.
Yeah.
Well, that comes down to what motivated them in the beginning. Like, why did you go and work there? What made you get that job? Now, did you get that job just because it was the highest paying job available? Or did you go get this job because you enjoy doing it? That makes the bigger difference. If you do something for the money, it's never going to work out. It's not going to work out. You might work there for a while, but you're going to be stressed out and you're going to end up not liking it. Because my parents always told me, do something you love doing. Don't worry about the money. Everything will fall into place. So those people who may be kind of like on hard times or whatever, they have to tap into their motivation of what made them do what they was doing, and how, and what was lost. Because if you got to figure out where you want to be, what's the end game? Because things change, and COVID changed a lot of things for a lot of people.
Yes.
Now you just have to adjust, and that can be the scary part, because now you might have to do something that you didn't plan on doing, and maybe you never thought about doing something different, and now you're going into the unknown. And we all know that the unknown is very scary, because sometimes you might have to take a leap of faith, and next thing you know, you don't know what's going to happen. So I think people need to tap into their motivation and figure out where do they really want to be.
No, that's a good point you said that, because I think if you look at the primordial example of plants, right? All growth begins in the darkness. I mean, if you really think about it, you have a seed. It's in the dark, it's buried, and it becomes a tree. All growth begins in the darkness. And if it wasn't for the darkness, you wouldn't see the stars. So you look at different things like that, and the worst of times can lead to so much more. And people are so caught up in, like our society is a Tylenol. I call it a Tylenol society, or an iPhone society. They want the next iPhone. They want the problem solved and fixed now. They won't endure the headache. They don't understand why the headache exists. Instead of really understanding that you can't only focus on the now. It's like there's a book, Power of the Now, and the lessons are great in it. But I think even more than that is the power of the why. Because if you have your why, it doesn't matter if you don't see your results right away. You trust your why, and it's motivating you forward. And eventually, you break through the surface. You become a sapling. Then you keep doing the things you need to do, and eventually, you're going to be a goddamn tree. So it's really your perspective that comes down. I know I've gotten caught up in that way and discouraged because I didn't see, necessarily the fruit right away. I was in that dark period. I was like, oh, I want to give up. I'm not even breaking through the soil. But you have to remember that it takes a while for things to really break through and grow. And we're the same way, as people. It's our character, our success. It's all about just having the will to grow and the why, knowing why.
And what gets in the way? Pride.
What? Oh, my God.
Gets in our way. And I've
Venomous.
had older people in my family, they would tell me, it's like, look, it don't matter if I have nothing to do. I will walk behind the elephant and shovel elephant shit in a wheelbarrow at the circus if I have to make a couple of bucks. Like, if I have nothing else to do, I will go do that. And like you said, and that's not going to be something permanent. That's not going to be for the rest of your life. But today you have no money. Right now you have nothing. You have to do something.
Yes.
You have to do something. And people get too proud to want to do those, I don't want to use the wrong word, but certain jobs, right? It's like, you need to do anything to get back on your feet. And people are afraid of that. Because I know people who didn't have a job, and then they would say, I don't want to work there because they're only paying this much. Yeah, but you have no job.
No,
you're not in a position to start negotiating stuff. You just need to get in the door. And then after that, man, you do whatever. You look for a better job, and then you can leave that one for a better one. But today, you need to make something. And I think pride gets in our way, man. I
learned that the hard way. I remember I'm a writer, so I write a lot. One of my when I was, I think, 15. Had some shit go down. I wrote, life is a hornet's nest. No matter which way you poke it, you're bound to get stung. So depressing, so negative. But you talk about pride. It's literally a viper's nest in the mind. It's venomous. But something I learned, a hard lesson. I had a lot of success through high school. Had scholarships for soccer, football, for academics. I graduated valedictorian, #1 in my school. I got Ivy League colleges, full rides, all this stuff, Dartmouth, Princeton, you name it. I'm not boasting at all right now. I'm just giving you an example to warm you up for what the reality is. So then I fucked up, I made some bad decisions, ended up with a son before I wanted a son. I love him to death, never regret anything about it. But, with children and unexpected children, I was young, I needed to get a job, right? So I had to walk away from full ride, full education, had no intention of going to the military or anything like that. But for a while, I had to come up with a situation. I was like, I need money. I didn't have money. I was going to school. I was in a fraternity, partying and taking a test the next day. So now I got to wake up and start doing shit that actually makes a difference, be a positive influence. So I get a job, 3 jobs actually. So I wanted to work all these hours. So I'm working 3 jobs, and one of them was at a gas station, right? Nothing against working at a gas station, like you said, not the job that matters. But I was so prideful when I first started there. And one of my professors came in. He was a history professor. He made a joke when I graduated, with all these honors and everything. And he's like, one day I'm gonna be working for you. You're gonna be making so much money. And I let that bloat me up. I got real cocky about it. Now I'm working at a gas station. He comes in to pump his gas. He gives me a triple glance, not just a double, triple glance. He's like, what the fuck? What, Greco? What are you doing? You working out? And he started laughing, and he mocked the fact that I was working there. Talked so much shit. He's like, oh, it looks like you're gonna be working for me now. It broke my heart, man. It made me, as a young kid, brand new father in a horrible situation, overwhelmed. I felt very small. I felt like a mouse in an elephant's shoe. And then the more and more I thought about it, man, I had some other customers come in, even customers there. And they said a couple of things, and things happened. And, I really just was like, you know what? I don't care that I'm working, I guess. I don't care what that asshole just came in here and said. I know that I had what it takes to excel. I still do. And this is a lesson that I'm teaching. I'm doing this because I'm providing for my unexpected son. I'm providing for my family. And I'm still working other stuff. And then that job became a manager at GNC. And the jobs got better and better from there. And eventually ended up joining the military and so on. And, now I'm living my dream on top of that. Traveling the world and all these things. Helping other people with a podcast, you name it. But it all started with me swallowing my pride. It's accepting that I think everything happens for a reason. Personally, I believe that. And it's how you react to it and how you respond to these hard times. Everyone deals with hard shit. And, that was one of the most humbling experiences of my life. And I my parents and upbringing, my grandparents, they always taught me that, humility always, what follows humility is success. You got to be humble to truly be successful. You have to experience some kind of a humility in your life. If you're a cocky person, if you're blind to the fact that you're over prideful or arrogant, whatever the case is. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because pride has been getting rid of that has been a huge thing for my life and bringing myself to where I'm at now. And that's powerful, man.
Yeah, man. Pride, man, you got to, sometimes you got to lose it. It's not always negative. You got to feel positive about yourself. You should be proud of yourself and stuff like that. But there are times where that's not necessary right now. You have to, you got to hunker down and make something happen. And I think that's what gets in the way of a lot of people, especially right now in the COVID stuff. People feel like, oh, I used to be this, so I can't do that job because that's a lower job. Well, you kind of need a job, so you need to get what's being offered. And I think and that you about jobs. That can be with anything, It could be anything other than just jobs. It's in life. Sometimes you got to take what you can get. You can't always pick and choose. What we always say, beggars can't be choosers. We say it all the time.
No, that expression may be hackneyed, but it's extremely true. I mean, this whole conversation is inspiring, and that's exactly what it's meant to be. It's been enjoyable hearing from someone who's been a mentor for years now, and just watching you succeed, even like when things are silent, like, we're not actually physically talking, it's still, the mentoring continues because of your posts that you share and the things you're doing and your success. So it's really huge thing I'm grateful for is that you share that, and just I thank you for accomplishing and chasing your dreams, and then sharing it with us, and sharing your nuggets of wisdom and experience, because it makes it easier for us to navigate the ship towards where we want to go. Is like we know, if you don't have where you want to go in the compass, you're fucked. You're gonna be stuck out to sea. You're gonna get stuck in a storm. Shit's gonna go wrong. You gotta know where you're going, know where you are. Because then when you need help, you know where to tell people to go. You can admit it. You get supplies, get the fuel, whatever the case is. It's extremely important to know who, why, your what, your 5 Ws. Extremely important in every aspect.
You know, it's funny you say that because I used to tell my students, I would say that. I would say, and not even, I'm talking about just, I'm speaking technical here with the IT stuff, right? So I would tell people, like, look, you have to understand what you're doing and what you need done. I said, if you don't know that, you can't even ask for help. Because, like, and I tell them, like, the most important part about being an IT is knowing who's on the other side of the cable. Because that cable, the other side of that could be in a whole other country. Most of the times it is. And if you don't know who those people are, you're going to have a hard time. Not only that, but now you have to explain where you're trying to go to somebody who can't see. You know, it's like, imagine you trying, it's like doing like, it's like one of those trust things we used to do, like when we was little, maybe went to some kind of camp or
Trust
a
falls.
trip.
Yeah.
And, you know, they will blindfold somebody, and then you would have to tell them how to walk and pick something up on the ground without stepping on a cone or something like that. It's the same concept. Like, if you don't know where you're going, you can't even ask for help. But people want help, but you need to tell me where you're trying to go so I can tell you what to do. And if you don't have that direction, man, good luck. Because it's going to be it's going to be rough trying to get back on your feet. And then you take that, sprinkle some pride on top of it, you have a disaster.
Absolute disaster. You're sinking. You're crashing. You're doing something that's not good. Man, speaking of going on the more wisdom that you can share on and giving people direction. So the last 2 questions I'm going to ask you, I ask everyone when I interview them, and it's special because it kind of gives people an insight where your heart and mind are. And like you said, you're a mentor, you enjoy giving people directions. They don't end up like we're talking about here. They don't end up too prideful. They end up sinking. They're stuck into the ocean. So the question I want to ask you is, if by some magic or genie you were asked if you can change one thing in the world, what would that thing be?
Decency, courtesy. That's probably what I would change. Because I see that now, man. It's simple stuff like people leaving shopping carts in parking spaces knowing that the shopping cart return is right there. Now, if that shopping cart hit their car, they would be upset. That's just to know when people do stuff like that, it's like, come on, man, what are we doing? And people nowadays, man, it's like no one cares about anybody. No one cares about anybody, it seems like. Just being out in public. You know, everybody loves family and stuff like that, but being out in public, just seeing how people interact, it's just like we don't love each other. You know, and we don't think about other people anymore. It's always about me. Oh, I'm being inconvenienced, so this whole thing is messed up. Well, you just have the inconvenience, but these other 200 people just got something good out of it. But we don't think about that. And I think the country used to be that way, especially like, I think the wars always do that. It's like back in World War II, everybody went to work in the factories, make bullets, make tanks to send it overseas. We can go take it to the Germans and all that kind of stuff. Then September 12th happened, and it seemed like the whole country was back together again. Everybody had American flags and all of this stuff, and then it fades away. And I think that's one thing I want to change. I wish people loved each other, because it would just make the world would just be such a better place. Because people will now do things for the greater good instead of just what's good for me. And that's one thing. That's for me. Like I said, I'm about happiness. So I want people to just be happy. Because when people are happy, you get a much better product. You get a much better environment. People aren't being nasty to each other. People just want to be happy, man. And that's my thing. I just want people to be happy, and I want people to just actually care about each other. especially today, man. It's like everywhere you go, it's this group versus this group. These people don't
Oh,
like these people.
mess.
And it's just like, man, it
It's
like,
chaos.
but we all live here. We all use the same facilities. We all do this. And I mean, this could be from all kinds of groups, politics, race, anything. It's always a divide. Everything is a divide. It's always this team versus this team, Democrat, Republican. It's always a divide. Everything like in just in everything we do, and it just drives a wedge between us as a people, and that's one thing, man. If I could I just want people to just love each other, man. I'd just be happy. It'd be
No,
much
it
better
reminds
place.
me of the Charles Dickens novel, man. It's like the Christmas story, like the Scrooge. So,
Oh
when you're
yeah.
negative, you're pessimist, you have nothing but hate in your heart. You get visited by ghosts. You're scared. You're living in fear. You're like, what the hell? You're getting harassed by your past. You're getting tortured by the uncertainty of your future, or in that case, the negative outcome of your future because you're living the way you're living. And then you get woken up like, what are you doing? Wake the hell up by your present. But the minute he turned around and started showing love and embracing, that happiness, the smile. And that was when things like Christmas really came. You know what I mean? And I think that Charles Dickens intended more in that story than it to just be a tis the season kind of a tale. Like it teaches you a lot of deep lessons about choosing love and choosing happiness and breaking away from the tortures of dwelling in past and the future and not really embracing and enjoying the now we have in each other, not taking each other and what you have for granted. Because there's always, one thing I shared was that your greatest struggle or your greatest failure is someone else's greatest success. Not to be exact, but I'm saying that people have way worse situations than you and I or the next guy. So you really have to take it for granted and be grateful. And I think there's such a gravity with gratitude. And I think that love and happiness are quick to follow when you're grateful.
Yeah, man. That's just one thing. I just hate to see things we always against each other in some form or fashion. It's always
Yep.
this group, team A versus team B. It's like that everywhere. And I just
People need to
wish it
start
wasn't
learning
like that.
from the military in the sense, and even some people in the military to wake up and realize and to remember that it's not, the Navy, we're Navy and gold. Remember that it's not, race or nationality. It's everyone's Navy and gold. We're brother and sister. So it's really a concept that needs to kind of bleed into society. Maybe not that deep, but to an extent where you're looking out and you're trying to better the next person, not trying to demean them or to learn from what they can teach you, etc. So kind of the segue off of that is the last question I'm going to ask you is similar, a little different. If you had a microphone and the whole world could hear you speak in that moment, what's the one thing that you would tell them?
Can I give you a couple of things?
All right, that's fair.
So,
That's fair.
all right, I got a couple of things actually. First thing, associations. You got to associate yourself with those that make you better. I think you said something just like that just now. And you have to surround yourself with people who know things that you don't know, who have abilities that you don't have, that you can feed off of. And the way that you look for these kinds of people, then someone is looking for someone just like you. So when you know that you can help somebody, you help them. Now, this is the key. The key is sometimes people don't know that they can ask you for help. Whether it's like, especially in the military, if people outrank you, you feel like you're not supposed to ask them for help at a certain distance, a certain pay grade. You don't ask certain people for help because you feel like you're not supposed to. You feel like you can't. And this is the problem, because you hear people say this, and we've all probably have said this at one time. Things like, they didn't want my help. They didn't ask me. That tells me that you watched somebody fail that you knew you could have helped, but you didn't for whatever reason. All right. Oh, yeah. So if you know you can help somebody, you help them, because you learn while you teach. Teaching isn't one way. It's a two-way street. You're going to learn while you're trying to teach somebody. So that's the first thing. Associations. Surround yourself with people that make you better, and welcome those that you can make better. That's number one. Number two, thoughts. And we've talked about this. So we're not disturbed by things that happen. We're more disturbed by the thought behind it, right? It's not that you tripped and fell. You probably failed 1,000 times in your life. But now you was on live TV. Oh, so it's a little different. Or you was at high school graduation, you fell on the stage in front of 1,000 people. Now it's different. You failed like you failed before, but now when you fail, you start thinking about how many people saw that? How many people are laughing at me? How many people had that on record on their cell phone and they're going to play it back when they go home and their friends are going to laugh at me? Now you become disturbed by it because of your own thoughts about it. So you have to control your thoughts. Because I remember earlier you said reactions. You got to control your reactions because you said it earlier. See how all this stuff starts to tie back into itself? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. So you become what you think. I think everybody knows that, but it's kind of hard sometimes. You become what you think. So you got to stay positive because those positive people, that's why people are drawn to them. Because when whatever energy you have, it radiates out. It radiates. It's positive or it's negative. And it's going to radiate out and it's going to affect other people.
That's true.
Whether it's somebody who walks in and they always greet everybody, hey, good morning, everybody. Whether people respond to it or not, they're like, oh, this guy's just always happy. But I can guarantee you there'll be a time where someone says, I wish I could be as happy as you. Somebody will say that. It might be 6 months later or now. They might say, man, I wish I could be as happy as you every morning. And it might be somebody who never even responds back to you. That energy that you have, positive or negative, it goes out. So you got to control your thoughts. All right, that's number two. Number three, control. So I see this a lot on social media. We value things out of our control. And when we do that, you have less control. And we pay attention and we worry about politics and things like that you can't do anything about. You have no effect on a lot of these things because the decision was already made. But we go to social media and we talk about it for weeks. But then you have somebody who doesn't have a job, if they're worried about something they can't even control. Instead of going out to get this, you're just sitting at home thinking about, whatever happened recently. So what happens, you start robbing yourself of the mental and emotional energy that you have that you're supposed to use to better yourself. But you're taking that and all you're doing is just complaining about something that you can't even control. I remember when I was I remember someone asked me one time after the last presidential election, someone asked me, hey man, what are you going to do now that, President Trump got elected? I'm like, I'm going to come to work tomorrow like I did today. I don't know what do you mean? What am I going to do? I'm going to come to work.
Right.
I mean,
people are like, it's going to really affect your. Ugh.
Yeah, it's like I don't know what you mean. I'm coming to work like I did yesterday. It doesn't bother me. It's what it is. What it is. So, we put so much energy on something that's already happened, and then we don't focus on what needs to happen. That's really what the issue is. And you can see it on social media every day. People are talking about stuff and worried about stuff that they can't do anything about.
Man, that's the truth, especially with COVID and all that.
All right, now I got one last one, and I'm done. I got one.
No, let's hear it.
This one is on decisions. This kind of ties in everything that we've talked about, the last three things that I discussed here. This is going to be the last one that brings everything home because every day you have to make a decision. And some of them are critical, some of them aren't. Some of them is what I want for breakfast, what I want to drink with my breakfast, orange juice or water, cranberry juice. That's a decision you have to make. Or is who do I associate with, right? Remember we just talked about that. What people do I want to hang around? Do I care about this one person's opinion about something I just did? Maybe I do, maybe I don't. You have to make that decision. And where am I going to focus my energy on? Am I going to worry about something that I can't fix? Or am I going to worry about something that needs to be done tomorrow? All of those are decisions that we have to make. Now, this is the key. The key is don't be afraid to make them. That's the key. You can't be afraid to make decisions. Now, it don't always work out in your favor, right? We always make decisions. Sometimes it just doesn't go the way that you want it to. It happens. And you also talked about reactions. We talked about that earlier, right? So when it doesn't work out in your favor, how do you react? What you do next is what really matters. Now, if everything turned out the way that you wanted to be, you wouldn't be the person that you are today, right? Imagine if everything just went peachy. You would not be the person you are today. You'd be a completely different person. So when it doesn't work out in your favor, you cannot think to yourself, you know what, I didn't do the right thing, or you start second guessing yourself. You start questioning your own ability to get stuff done. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. CEOs make decisions and they end up fired. Admirals make decisions and they end up fired. So if those people are humans, right? We're all humans. If they make all this money, they're in these high positions, and they work from the bottom and went all the way to the very top, and they can still make a mistake, I think we all can make them. So you have to remember that every decision doesn't always work out. And when it doesn't, you have to respond in a way that's going to move you forward so you don't make that same decision later in the future. And that's the number one key right there. Don't make the same bad decision twice. Learn from it, figure out where you went wrong, how did you do that, and then you teach yourself, okay, this is where I went wrong at. And then you don't make it again. And then you show somebody, remember those associations, those people who are looking up to you, you made a mistake. So you feed that back down to those other people who are looking up to you and say, look, I messed this up so you don't do this later when you get in my position. The information flow just keeps going and it's going. But it takes certain people to do that. So those are the four things: associations, control your thoughts, control what you put your energy on, and make decisions, and don't be afraid. And then when they don't go your way, make sure you react appropriately. Those are my four things.
That's a home run right there. I love that.